Swales, When Burnout Becomes Reality podcast creator, producer, host, everything really. A podcast that was born out of my own lived experience of burnout and my desire to connect with people who were or are going through or have gone through burnout and share my own experience. And it's evolved from there to also having guests come on the show and for me to share professional wisdom as to how to navigate this thing we call burnout to help prevent, recover, and really transform and evolve so we don't get burnt out again. So this is When Burnout Becomes Reality podcast. Please note that whilst my guests, some of us work in the burnout field and we are coaches, counselors, therapists in this space, that the information we do provide, the wisdom that we do share, cannot be tailored to meet your personal needs and should not be a replacement of going out there and getting personalized help and support from a professional in burnout for yourself. I can't stress that enough. And please, if you are finding you need immediate counselling, I really encourage to link with your a GP, a doctor, to help you with that. Here in Australia, we also have national telephone and online services, Lifeline 131114, and especially if there is any risk to yourself, if you're feeling suicidal, please contact your local emergency services, or national I should say. Here in Australia, that is 000, and also Lifeline 131114. With that in mind, please sit back, or if you're someone who listens to your pod while exercising or your commute, whatever you're doing, I hope that you find this episode enlightening and supportive in your journey and your experience with burnout. Take care of yourselves. Bye for now. In episode 42, I sit down with Michael Cole, a 49-year-old autistic man, married, father of two, and how we met, a podcaster. Definitely check out the Deep Dive podcast. Michael shares his powerful story of experiencing autistic burnout. He offers insights in what contributed to it, how he recovered, and how he now works to prevent it and to support his mental health and well-being overall. We explore key topics like people-pleasing, ableism, workplace accommodations, at-home supports, and the power of authenticity and the importance of compassionate support from others. This episode is a must listen for anyone who is autistic or who wants to better understand the unique challenges autistic individuals face and the very real risk of burnout. So without further ado, here's Michael Cole's story. Hi, Michael, and welcome to When Burnout Becomes Reality podcast. It's an absolute pleasure to have you here, especially being able to talk to your experience of burnout, autism burnout. So welcome to the show.
Thank you very much, Shannon. It's delightful to actually sort of be on here. And I know you've been on my podcast, which is the Deep Dive podcast, and we're sort of like, returning the favor, so to speak.
Yeah, it's a bit of a swap seats, which I really had such a great time being on your podcast as well. If my listeners haven't checked out the Deep Dive podcast, please go and check that out. But for my listeners to get to know you, Michael, do you mind sharing a little bit about yourself? Introduce yourself.
Okay, so I'm 49 and I'm autistic. So I've been diagnosed 3 times, firstly with PDD-NOS, which is post-developmental disorder, not otherwise specified. This is when I was 3. And then I was diagnosed again with Aspergers Syndrome back in 2010 when I was about 35. And I was re-diagnosed with Autism Spectrum Disorder back in 2017. So I was actually sort of diagnosed 3 times. Basically, I'm married with 2 kids, one who is actually 7 years old and is also autistic, and my son who is 2. So, and I live with my wife and 2 kids, and they're an absolute delight, even though they're a little bit of a handful, but they're still really good.
I imagine parenting is, I think, not for the faint-hearted, is it? But yeah. Imagine there's lots of pleasures with that as well. And it's so interesting. You mentioned that you were diagnosed with PDD at 3 years old.
Mhm.
I'm just curious how that's different, because I haven't heard of that diagnosis before, and how
Mm.
that's different to the Aspergers and Autism Spectrum Disorder. Yeah.
Well, back then, pretty much I went to sort of like I went to Glen Leiden School, which was a school back then for people with, speech issues and
Oh,
stuff like that, because I wasn't sort of speaking at that particular age. Uh,
yeah.
and I think it's Mansell College now from memory. I think it's been changed, but it's obviously at the same location. I was basically sort of like, PDD-NOS was basically the name because they didn't sort of have like
Mm.
an autism diagnosis for high functioning autistic. I was basically sort of like confused as normal when I was actually not normal, if that makes sense.
Oh, certainly, because I was thinking about your age and what I know about diagnosis as a psych, which is not everything, but that you've certainly lived through the years where, as you're clearing up for me, there wasn't a diagnosis for that high functioning or on the autism spectrum that we know now, that later became called Asperger's. Now it's high
Yeah.
functioning autism,
Yeah.
or just
And I,
autism spectrum
yeah,
disorder.
and also think attitudes have changed towards it as well, because I think Asperger's was, I think, highly vilified and stuff like that, and or stigmatized back then. And I think with sort of some people, they can get bullied and stuff like that because they sort of look a bit different, or they sort of sound a bit different, or that type of thing, or their mannerisms are a little bit different.
Yeah. And
So
li- and like you said, your experience of that early age, you were treated as normal when what was going on for you wasn't, or I don't like using that word, but there was things going on for you,
mm,
neurologically, and that required attention and help. But because you appeared to be functioning, it got missed, or that you,
yeah, exactly. And it's
Jesus.
worse with girls as well, because I think at that sort of particular stage, I mean, signs can be missed in both sexes and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So, depending on how they sort of like, present in the world.
Mm, mm. Certainly, and it sounds like for you, and as you've highlighted, I've heard that too, for young women, for girls, but also for yourself, for men as well, boys, being missed as well, especially if they're sort of appearing to be higher functioning. Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. Geez, I'm so grateful for you being on the show, because such a, I suppose, a wealth of experience through the time that you've lived in.
Mm.
And as you said, we're certainly growing as a society in our understanding and approach, but you've lived through, and there still is a lot of stigma, but you certainly lived through the times where there was a lot of that, and how that would have impacted you as well.
Yeah,
Uh, yeah, sorry.
mind you, there is a lot more sort of acceptance these days compared to what there was before. Because I know sort of like, these days, I know my daughter has recently
Mm.
at a she swapped schools now, but at her last school, obviously,
Yeah.
uh the like some of the parents and the kids actually accepted her, but obviously the people in the management at the school didn't accept her. But then we actually sort of like changed schools, and then sort of you basically have that acceptance and stuff like that because we've got everything all in place and working pretty well. So yeah, so
Mm.
there's all these acceptance, and ever since I first got diagnosed with Asperger's and stuff like that,
Yeah.
that was about 14 years ago now.
Yes. 20.
So there's quite a lot of build up and acceptance, and also the fact is the NDIS is basically sort of help with that sort of basically getting helping people to get that diagnosis sort of sorted.
Yeah, so that's so wonderful here, that how that has assisted and helped as well, that system of NDIS, for autism spectrum disorder, and people, getting diagnosed and getting help as well.
Yep.
So, as you know about me, my focus is on burnout, and I have come to see how frequent, see and read, but see how frequent burnout occurs for people who are neurodivergent, so autism or ADHD. So I'm so grateful to have someone with lived experiences come on, because to learn through someone who's experienced it, what that's about, or how that shows up. So do you mind sharing a little bit about how burnout showed up for you and what that looked like? Oh,
Well,
God.
I have to sort of like, this is in context. I had a really bad autistic burnout episode, but it started off in about May last year when I was actually working in a particular workplace. And
Mm,
then the person I was working with, which we basically organized the work very well, everything was working really sort of well. They
mm,
basically left. Or there was two stuff that was basically left. They basically accepted my disability. So
mm,
but there was another person that didn't know the aspect of my disability,
mm,
but basically they pulled all the work on me and stuff like that. And basically the
mm.
worst part is people pleasing. So I had a sort
Okay.
of tendency to people please, where you're trying to sort of make people happy and everything.
Mm,
Over time, you basically sort of like you felt like you were drowning. So you were trying to sort of
yeah.
like communicate. I wasn't taught in this particular way, and so I can't sort of like, do the work how this person actually wanted you to and stuff like
Mm,
that. So you're trying to sort of like, you're trying to sort of please them and stuff like that. But at the
mm,
same time, you're trying to sort of express your needs and and at the end of the week, because I was working a full-time job at that stage,
mm,
I was very tired and I couldn't function at the weekend. So it was, basically, it's not really sort of good when you sort of can't be present
mm,
to care for your children, or also sort of be sort of like, you don't want to socialize at the end of the week because basically you're sort of tired and stuff like that. And you're trying to deal with other people's personalities and stuff like that. And I do struggle with that if there's, a particular personality that sort of saps your energy and stuff like that. And
mm,
really, really tired. And on the 2nd of November last year, I basically had enough. So I text my wife at the time, and basically she said basically to go to the GP and to actually sort of like get a medical certificate, maybe get some stress leave and stuff. Sort of like, the people pleasing person I was at the
mm,
particular time. Like, how do I sort of describe it? Basically, by 10 o'clock, I had enough. I was basically hyperventilating. I rang
mm,
1-3 Health to basically, and I described my symptoms, and they basically said, "Look, you have to go to hospital." So yeah, I went to hospital, the Robina Mental Health Care
yeah.
unit, and that sort of calmed me down, stuff like that. But I was taken to the emergency room because they felt that I wasn't coping, and my burnout was at the stage I couldn't work and stuff like that because,
Yeah.
I couldn't work after that and I had to resign from my job. But basically I was taking a whole lot of stuff on and stuff like that. And then I was like drowning and then
Yeah.
I needed to find a job with basically sort of like I'm working like two casual jobs now, but that's
Mm,
actually suits me because I can sort of like, if one part doesn't go as well as it can, I can just basically sort of swap things around. But
mm-hmm.
because I'm actually sort of passionate about this and just about autism and stuff like that, I
Mm,
feel like it's working to my strengths. So it's sort of
yeah.
it's feeding my energy rather than sapping my energy. So yeah, so um
Yeah.
pretty much
No.
the crux of it.
Yeah. Wow. Like your description there of you were drowning. Yeah, I feel like that just captures burnout, right? Drowning, and your body and mind and soul was so overwhelmed, so zapped of energy that
Mm,
it got to that point you couldn't function, you couldn't go to work, there was that overload, and often it just sounds like that anxiety was just out of this world as well at that stage. And it's really interesting. It sounds like you've gained a lot of wisdom or understanding either before or during this process. Like you picked up that people pleasing, that's a behavioral pattern
mm.
that you feel
That's kind of
contributed.
the worst
Yeah.
thing as well, because basically you're trying to sort of please people and trying to sort of do all you can to basically sort of impress that person. But
Mm,
in the end, you really got to have your own boundaries because otherwise it's sort of like, you feel like burnt out and you just basically said, look, this is
mm,
enough. It's not working for
yeah.
me. So,
And I think it was interesting also what you shared too about the change in the leadership there at your previous workplace, that where you burned out, that there was that acceptance and working with your disability, and so you could work in the way that works for you there.
mm,
But then when that changed and the leadership there was requiring you to work in a way that didn't work
mm,
for you, that combined with, I imagine, the people pleasing, you know it's certainly a recipe for burnout, right?
yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And what you said there too, that you noticed you started to not be able to function on the weekends, like all your resources were used up and drained up, that you couldn't before you completely burnt out and couldn't work, that you found you couldn't participate in life on the weekends. And I hear that a lot. So just hearing that was your experience too.
Yeah, and the fact is, sort of like, even now, I'm basically sort of like, by 2 o'clock, I'm just basically sort of like, zonked and stuff like that. Even though
Mm.
I like I work, and basically I like to I like my job, and I'm very passionate about my job.
Yeah.
Sometimes, you do feel tired at the end of at the end of the day, and you just feel like a little bit of a nana nap at 3 or 4 in the afternoon. So, I
Yeah.
mean, sort of like my day. I mean, I do need to sort of have that decompression space to be able to basically sort of live my life to the fullest and stuff like that.
Mm.
And the benefit of being on the NDIS myself, because I only
Mm.
got on there in December, I was able to sort of get a support worker to basically help with household tasks and all
Mm.
that type of thing. And because otherwise you just feel like you're zapped and stuff like that, and you can't do everything.
Yeah. Yeah, it sounds like there's so much wisdom that you've gained as well through the burnout and just, I imagine, life as well, that that you're putting into place now to help work with yourself.
Yes.
Like, I mean, the help of being on the NDIS now and getting that help, with those domesticated chores and things like that. So your energy can be reserved, and because you've only got so much, can be given to other areas, like with work. But what are those things that you find, to support with having autism? And is that the correct way, to say having autism? Or I just
No,
wanted to make,
it's
yeah.
all sort of like, it's basically you've got your own preferred language. I'm saying I'm autistic and stuff like that. Not necessarily a person with autism, but basically I'm autistic, being who I am and basically sort of being my authentic self.
Mm.
I find also sort of like connecting with neurocognition, I think, is so important. I've joined a sort of like a support group called NeuroAccess, which is basically
Mm.
sort of like, it connects with all these other neurodivergent people on this platform. So you're able to sort of like, have a chat, make some new friends, and trying to sort of like, vent what you're feeling at the time.
Mm.
If you have sort of, I know the issues with NDIS has been a bit sort of in the
Yeah.
hot topic of late. So people
Mm.
vent with that. And it's also able to sort of find strength, like, the strength to be able to sort of like, vent that thing and basically listen to them and listen to their needs as well, which is so
Mm.
important. We can sort of share our autistic joy as well, because some strange, weird quirks, but we sort of like, accept each other as we are. We don't want to sort of like, change people, because it's
Mm.
not who your authentic self is. And basically,
Mm.
like, expressing your authentic self is so essential and stuff like that to sort of
Mm.
feel like you sort of belong. I'm also a part
Yeah.
of the Neurodivergent Business Collective. This is outside of the NDIS, but I've joined this
Mm.
particular thing correctly, where you can connect with other sort of like allied health professionals, or other autistics and stuff like that.
Mm.
But basically diagnosed autistics or neurodivergent people, that
Mm.
they can share their wisdom, share their strengths, share their sort of like celebrations and stuff like that, or they can seek advice and stuff like that, and it's so cathartic to sort of link up with them. It just feels like it's kind of like a nice warm big hug, pretty.
Oh, it feels like the phrase that's coming up in my head, you found your tribe. Like you just found a group in which you feel safe,
Mm.
supported, like a warm, big hug. I'm like, if that's how it feels, you found, a group that, yeah, you can be yourself with, and you can share everything with. And I'm so glad that you found that. I feel like it's one of the things that I've found just in life that helps support us through the ups and downs is having our people, whoever they are, that we feel are safe, supported, like a big hug, as you mentioned.
Exactly. It's sort of like,
Mm.
we all need that connection in one shape or
Mm.
and
Mm.
it's better to sort of be in a safe group
Big
that
ups.
believes you, that sees
Mm.
you, that
Mm.
basically just fully appreciates who you actually are.
Yeah, and I think that goes, with whatever's going on for us, if we're autistic, ADHD, neurotypical, whatever, we need to be around people who see us, who
Mm.
authentically see us, who allow us to be ourselves, celebrates our joys, support us when things are not great. We all need connection, that kind of connection. I'm so glad that you found that, and that's been useful support. I feel like I'm going backwards, but I wanted to pick your brain about what you've noticed is different about burnout for an autistic person compared to, or just, yeah, like, yeah, how's it different, in terms of burning out when you're autistic? Yeah.
Okay, I think you sort of like I'm sort of describing it in this sort of way. It kind of feels like you're basically sort of your brain power is running about 3 times the speed, processing a lot of information all at the same time. And like you can only sort of process so much information sort of like that at one time. And basically you're trying to sort of like, you're trying to sort of process who you are and all that type of thing, and also trying to overthink what you've said to people, just in case you said it
Mm,
wrong and all that type of things. Your brain's running at about 10 times the speed of a normal sort of brain.
yeah.
So you can't run at that speed forever, because obviously you get burnt out, you get burned out,
Mm.
but also obviously that sort of like zaps your energy. That's the way an autistic brain works compared to a normal brain.
Yeah, that I've never heard it shared in that way, but it makes complete sense from again just vicariously listening and working with people who are autistic. That yeah, their brain is functioning a different way, but yeah, the speed of processing,
Mm,
because how you process is different, or how that brain processes is different, and what it processes on. You mentioned they're like social situations,
mm,
and that's where that speed sounds like, yeah, it's definitely in overdrive and going over, and it creates a lot of obviously uses a lot of energy, I should say,
yeah,
which
exactly. Yep.
makes you susceptible to burnout. And there's also and I know this is different for every autistic person, but the stimulation, like the environmental stimulation, I believe, is something that impacts and
Yeah.
how you process that stimulation affects the energy of the body and can create
Especially
more
in
stress.
crowded situations and stuff
Mhm.
like that, where sort of like, the noise, like in
Mhm.
like an open plan office, for example,
Yeah.
tend to get basically burnt out there, because you've got so many conversations happening and so many sort of like, you're trying to sort of concentrate on the particular sort of task you have, but then you
Mhm.
sort of get distracted and all that type of thing. And then sort of the distractions basically sort of like do a task, one task at a time and stuff like that.
Mm.
In a normal sort of office setting, you have to sort of do multiple things at a time, and then you sort of like you don't know, you've basically lost your train of thought, so you've got to
Yeah.
start again, and then sort of like, and that sort of delays your the work and stuff like that, the work output, the work quality and stuff like that. That sort
Mm.
of affects that as well. Also,
Yeah.
with regards to the noise and stuff like that, some noise can be sort of like, if it's sudden screeching, or the sounds of the city and stuff like that, can be a bit overwhelming as well, because you've got sort of, and also like going into work, you
Yeah,
sort
I
of,
was thinking that too.
yeah,
Yeah.
because I was just going to say, you sort of like, if you're on public transport, you got to sort of deal with like, the peak hour, and be overwhelming in itself. That so,
Um,
as well,
mm.
because people like to travel in their own cars. Autistic people don't meet like being stuck in peak hour traffic, for example, because you've got sort of
Oh,
like, you've got,
not moving. Yeah.
you're not moving.
Mm.
You just feel like you're running behind schedule, that, and you just feel like doing what you're able to do, because you can't do anything, because you're basically stuck in this particular sort of
Mm,
flow lane.
mm, mm. There's so many. Thank you for opening that up. And there's, yeah, just so many more elements that take energy due
Mm,
to the autistic brain. Yeah. And yeah, and that energy, I mean, we all have a finite amount of energy every day.
mm,
And if that gets used up just in the traffic getting to work,
yeah.
we're already, or someone with autism already exhausted by the time they get into the office.
Yeah. So the
Um,
finite energy is basically sort
yeah.
of, it's called spoon theory. So, but what
Yeah.
you've got sort of so many spoons in a particular day. Your spoons get distracted or like extracted or something like that if you're doing a particular task.
Mm.
Also struggle with sleep as well, because
Oh, okay.
you have to sort of like, if you get a good night's sleep, you get full of spoons. But then sort of like, if you have a really bad night's sleep because you're sort of overthinking stuff, or
Yeah.
sort of like, you can't get to sleep and stuff like that, because we take a
Mm.
lot longer to get to sleep. We do
Yeah.
have to take medications to actually sort of help us to sleep, because we can't relax our brains and stuff like that. We tend to be we tend to be night owls to a degree, because we like to
Yeah.
a hard day at work. I just like to sit down and just basically surf the internet and stuff like that, sort of
Yeah.
lose track of time. and then you have to go to bed and then sort of like, prepare for the next day. By the time you feel like you're exhausted and stuff like that, so you have to sort of get up and then.
Hi there, a small intrusion to share with you my book, Nothing Left to Give. I know it comes up in the show sometimes, so I wanted to share with you a little bit about this book. So this is the book that I wrote, well, basically the journals I kept while I was burnt out and made the commitment to overhaul my life in order to undo the very things that got me burnt out in the first place. So perfectionism, people pleasing, very good at nurturing others, but not myself, or allowing others to nurture me, just to name a few. And I've also included the practices that I like to call wellness practices that supported me along the way to getting better. So I hope my story at least helps you not feel so alone in this, and helps you along the way. So available on Amazon, but other online retailers as well. I'll leave the link to where you can purchase the book in the show notes. Thank you for allowing me to abruptly and rudely interrupt your episode, but now back to the episode. Take care of you.
Like perform the next day. So
It's really like the world, the modern world is really not set up, right? To support an autistic person, an autistic brain. Because I just think of like the open plan office, it seems like a lot of them do that. A lot of us have to travel to work. Cities are noisy, right? Traffic jams. And, just the fact of working full time, 9 to 5, if you're sleeping, and I've worked with a few, not diagnosed, but I do suspect, and they suspect as well, that night owl, like their sleeping patterns are different. Just naturally, when they're able to sleep in the way they need to sleep, they actually function quite well. Like, for example, 1 to 10 o'clock, 1 a.m. to 10 o'clock, but their working life doesn't work that way.
no,
Like,
exactly. That's the half the problem, because basically sort of like not a lot of workplaces actually do have that sort of like flexibility to be able to sort of do that.
flexibility.
So
Mm.
yeah, and basically I know I was working from home. I was very lucky at that particular stage of my last job, which actually suited me. But I think sort of like, it does tend to have that challenges and stuff like that with communication as well. You're trying to sort of communicate as much as you can, but sort of like, but you sort of need to have that working from home or working for yourself and stuff like that, that kind of, because you
Mm.
could actually control your own destiny as well and control your own environment.
Yeah. Well, yeah, like you can control the environment, so the stimulation, but I love what you said there, control your destiny too, be able to work on and work in a way that works for you.
Yeah.
So that working for yourself often can be a lot more conducive if one can find that, or their profession or whatever allows for that. Yeah, no, so interesting. Is there other in your experience of autistic burnout, that other things, because you shared so much that has helped. But I was wondering if you can share a little bit more about what supports, to prevent, I suppose, the burnout, to, support it from not happening. But of course, recovery as well, and, being able to overcome it too. Just what your wisdom is there.
Yeah, I know. Ever since I've been on the NDIS, I was able to sort of get some more supports, which I actually desperately
Yeah.
needed. So, first of all, before I actually got on the NDIS, I was exclusively in psychology and stuff like that. And you feel like you're basically whilst you're in work, you're constantly basically putting out fires. For example,
Mm.
you're basically sort of complaining, oh, this person sort of like, did this to me and all that type of thing. So you're just trying to sort of like, put out fires and stuff like that, which you didn't sort of do. It's just other people sort of trying to take your energy from you.
Mm.
But, after the burnout, basically I got access to occupational therapy, which like, I did a functional capacity assessment, which actually identified quite a few more things and stuff like that for my executive functioning, which actually we sort of need more funding for. So
Yeah.
that's going to be finalized, I believe, next week after the time of recording. So I should be able to,
Mm.
like, once this is out, that will be done. Also, sort of like, with speech therapist I was working with, and basically sort of I got a speech like report and basically that I can present to my employer, for example, sort of how you can work best and all that type of thing. And also sort of trying to get strategies to slow my voice down so I can sound a bit more prepared and sound a bit more confident, so to speak, because basically sort of they don't teach you these skills to sort of relearn how to basically sort of make sure that your speech actually sort of works for you, because sometimes I sort of speak too fast or speak on the wrong subject or speak at a particular place or describe basically a story at the wrong place or the wrong time, that type of thing.
Yeah.
Sometimes it doesn't make sense to people. So
Yeah.
I'm trying to sort of like, I've got diagnosed with expressive language and receptive language disorder.
Yeah.
It's,
Yeah.
I think receptive language disorder, I can't process auditory things correctly and stuff like that, even though
Mhm.
you can hear it. Sometimes you miss certain parts of the conversation and stuff like that, or you
Yeah.
like, you can sort of work out what the gist of it is, but there's also all these different meanings and stuff like that of particular things
Mm.
as well. So
Mm.
I mean, sometimes you sort of like, you have to, if it's visual and stuff like that, you got sort of like something that can sort of like, understand your head. And sometimes we have to
Mm.
ask questions and stuff like that to make sure what it's meaning and stuff like that, because basically people don't actually sort of communicate what they do actually mean. Because we actually
Mm.
like, conveying things a bit literally, so to speak.
Mm. So there's different communication styles, between someone who's autistic and someone who's not. But then, like, it sounds like through your diagnostic and journey, you've also discovered there's some other things going on as well, and getting that professional help to
Mm.
support you in those being in terms of that communication, knowing what's going on for you, and then how you can, I suppose, use those strengths or be able to communicate effectively. But because, like, if we think about our work world, or we think about our world, we're exchanging with people all the time, right? And how much energy that would be zapped with, and create that burnout, that chronic stress and burnout load, when you're communicating with people who don't understand the autistic brain,
Mm.
and have different ways of communicating. But what's helping is having some support, professional supports to help you, and be able to provide information to your employer to help them be able to put in accommodations where possible, understand what goes on for you. Is that what like,
That's correct.
bit of
Yeah.
both
Also
ways?
sort of
Yeah.
like, basically I was sort of with, some peer mentor from Embrace Autism, which I actually sort of had last year. I basically put together a little bit of a document, uh,
Mm.
which basically sort of how my autism affects me, and also sort of like, how you can work with me effectively,
Yeah.
how I do struggle and stuff like that. So I've got that on hand to be able to sort of like, basically give that to
Mm.
employers, and this, they can share that with the other employees and stuff like that, so they know how to sort of interact, and why I do these type of things or strange things if I don't have eye contact, for example. So
Mm.
I sort of have to look up into the sky to basically sort of like look up, to basically sort
Mm.
of think of things and stuff like that off the top of
Yeah.
my head. And also trying to, sometimes I do tend to sort of talk too fast, or have, basically word finding difficulty as well,
Mm.
because sometimes you're trying to sort of find the correct words,
Mm.
be able to sort of like, do that. I know it sort of sounds like you're forgetting, but you're not, because
No.
basically you're just trying to sort of think about it. And basically it's something at the top of your head, those with the brain,
Mm.
in between the sort of like, the brain and the mouth, it tends to get a bit
Mm.
as well, because
Mm.
I do tend to write beautiful, beautiful emails, but
Mm.
sometimes my speaking voice can be a little bit different and stuff like that, because the brain pathways from that part of the brain to the mouth can get a bit sort of jumbled, so to speak.
Yeah, no, totally. And like you said too, it can get put down to a memory issue when it's not. It's a neurological wiring in how the autistic brain is wired, and working out ways, or communicating so to people that you work with, so they know, what's going on. And actually, that leads me to, the question, or just even the discussion around, people that you're working with, particularly your leaders and stuff, what you'd like them to know about, I suppose, autism, but particularly about the risk of burnout for autistic people. the messages to people in those positions, or even colleagues, or just human beings, that because we will come across and be working with or friends with someone with autism, and and being able to just understand that a bit more, but particularly work, accommodations there, or how what you'd like them to know.
Yeah, accommodations is really important and stuff like that. And everybody sort of like, needs those accommodations to be able to sort of work effectively. Because if it's basically sort of explained off by heart and basically sort of like, followed, that could actually be a really sort of good solution that and be able to sort of like you can work better with them. So
Yeah.
I don't know why they basically sort of have these. Some people have this ableistic attitude. We don't have to put accommodations because, you're sort of like, you look normal to me. You don't look autistic.
Mm, mm,
That's problematic because you can't hide them in the end. So basically,
mm,
sort of like, this is my autistic traits. I tried to warn you about that. So,
mm.
that's why I gave you these documents to be able to sort of to help you. So,
Yeah, because you're so proactive as well in sharing that knowledge, giving the opportunity for that person to be able to, work with you and work in a way that's productive and useful, and of course psychologically safe, so psychosocially safe as well. But that ableist attitude, especially as you just shared too, that you don't look autistic,
yeah. And I
because
think
of
it's the biggest problem with, some people trying to understand us as well.
because that, like, what looks like autistic, I think there's that, because I've heard that too. I mean, I've had people who are autistic or suspect that they are, or even ADHDers, and it's like, you don't look it. And often, or I haven't said that to them, but they've had that said to them. And, often people who said that, they have that very or they have an image in their head of what it looks like. And it's often those that have been portrayed across our lifetime of what autistic looks like or what ADHD looks like. And it's usually the extreme ends, rather than the full spectrum that it can show up. And more than anything, it doesn't matter what we think. If that person is sharing with you
Mm.
that they have this, they are autistic, you believe them. You work with them,
Mm.
you accommodate, but yes, ableist attitude, and the
Yeah. And
stigmas.
also the fact is that basically, like up until 10 years ago,
Mm,
ADHD and and Autism Spectrum Disorder were diagnosed as separate conditions. You could actually sort of now get those together because a lot of ADHD can be later diagnosed autistic and the
mm,
other way around as well. So it's sort of like and also these co-occurring conditions as well. So sometimes,
mm.
people can have Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, for example. It's connective tissue.
Oh, yes, I know. Yeah, EDS. Yeah.
EDS, yeah. So
Yeah.
basically, sort of like, people have a lot of co-occurring conditions. Like
Mm,
I have a bowel condition as well. So basically,
okay.
sort of like, a lot of people, because of the brain gut sort of like, scenario, they
Yes.
sort of like, they have gut issues and stuff like that. So, sort of
Mm,
a lot of autistics can have co-occurring additions as well, which basically can
yeah.
also complicate their health and all that type of thing as well.
Yeah, and just put an extra spin on that too, and put them at higher risk of burnout as well, because people with chronic illnesses, because EDS, lots of illnesses are chronic in nature, and the looking after, like, doing the health things to look after that, or dealing with the pain associated with that, that all takes energy as well to
Yeah.
manage. And I do see a lot of people who are experiencing burnout that have chronic illnesses, and because it's just a huge load to take, dealing with the health systems or even NDIS. It's just that, a lot of stresses that come with that.
And the
Uh,
fact that
mm,
some medical professionals do tend to dismiss you as well, because basically it's sort of like, say we don't believe you because you're sort of not presenting with like the typical sort of symptoms and stuff like that.
Yes, that again, the interpersonal exchanges and the nasty ones, the ones where you're not believed, you're not seen, heard, listened to, which does that further damage, adds another stressing layer, anxiety layer, trauma layer.
Yeah.
And I have heard that. I only just more recently read up about that those co-occurring, that chronic illnesses like EDS, and people with autism or ADHD, I'm not sure if it's both, but yeah, neurodivergence. Definitely, I've read about that, and from my just exposure, I've seen that as well. Yeah, and yourself, you're dealing with the bowel condition as well. So yeah,
Yeah, so there's a lot of co-occurring conditions as well, which we have to deal with as well, and all the, and also secondly, the ableism and stuff like that. So you're just trying to sort of like, this is what I'm experiencing. I get a solution for it, but then sort of like, they don't give you a solution because basically they sort of think it's all in your head.
Yeah, yeah. And then no wonder like the burnout rates are a lot higher for people with autism or other conditions that are not seen or heard, like but talking about autism today, because you're dealing on lots of levels. You're dealing on the social level with peers at work, culturally with the ableism. There's the stigma, the shame, and not just with the autism, but then even suffering psychologically. We know often there comes a lot of it's changing, the world's changing, but there's still a lot of stigma and shame that one can hold around that, because it comes from that cultural learning, that, to struggle mentally, oh, must be weak. I obviously don't believe that, but, there's just so many elements that I can see why or how one who is experiencing or has autism, is autistic, is going to burn out, or can burn out. Yeah. But I'm also hearing from you and your experience what actually helps. And the biggest thing that jumps out to me is like supports and non-judgmental, authentic, able to be yourself kind of supports that come from peers who are living and knowing as well, but coming from workplaces and people who are willing to, work with and, and actually see you and work with you and work to your strengths, that this is what will help and help minimize the chance of, burnout or things like that. Psychological damage. Yeah. I feel like we've, certainly covered a lot of things. Is there anything that you feel like, oh, I really want to share about your autistic burnout experience that would be helpful for the listeners, whether they're autistic themselves or they're wanting to learn and grow and understand autism, particularly autism burnout, what you'd like to share?
Yeah. Well, autistic burnout is so real. And basically, I know sort of a lot of people are still ignoring it, which is, I feel it's a shame, really, because it's sort of like, there's so many sort of people that are living their best lives out on TikTok and Instagram and all that type of thing. And they're late diagnosed autistics. And I know sort of late diagnosed autistics sort of didn't sort of get diagnosed until like a few years ago, and now sort of like they're processing the trauma and go through this tunnel and then sort of emerge the other side more sort of authentic, more happier, more sort of supported. You don't sort of tend to burden your partner or other spouse as well, because sometimes you sort of I was actually talking about this to my wife last night.
Yeah.
Sort of like, my wife was carrying all this burden because it was like, like dumping it on her. And I know sort of for the fact that she's got a full-time job. She's got to basically deal with the kids as well. And I found my tribe to be able to sort of vent with that. It's basically sort of take that weight off my partner's shoulders as well, which I think is sort of like, it's great for her.
Yeah, I didn't even think about that. Yeah, widening your support network and finding the right support, that free to be you is really helping in your other relationships as well, the one with your spouse. Because and I think about my burnout, and I relied a lot because my network was very small. Like I didn't reach out. And plus I didn't have, like you said, like I didn't have any energy. I had nothing for anybody else. So I was just everything on my husband, and even picking up on the household chores. And we don't have kids. And I was still able to walk the dog because that wasn't so much to do. But I'm sure if we had kids, he would be taking the brunt of that, just with how, my dysfunction at the time. But that finding that network and finding people where you can share and can, yeah, help all those other relationships that are important to you.
And I
Yeah.
know it sort of takes away with our executive functioning as well, because basically we could only deal with so much
Mm.
throughout the day, and we do tend to need that restorative sleep to be able to sort of
Yeah.
finish our spoons again.
Yeah, and you did mention like how much the brain, autistic brain thinks as well, like, compared to someone else, like you're thinking and processing a lot, which I know with our thinking mind, how much that can disrupt our sleep, when we're trying to sleep, or how much it creates or can contribute to our stress and our anxiety and any other, frustrations. So yeah, that sleep becomes even more important to help with all of that too. Yeah, yeah. Well, Michael, it's been so great being able to have a chat with you and to hear more about autism burnout, particularly your experience of it. I know I'm quite positive the listeners will get so much from that. And I just really want to thank you from the bottom of my heart that coming on the show and sharing it all with us.
Well, it's my pleasure as always. I'm really happy to connect with you, and also sort of providing this sort of advice to people, because I think it's sort of so essential that this lived experience is actually shared, and
Yeah.
people can sort of basically sort of hopefully people can have some good takeaways from this.
Oh, I bet they will. And actually, if people, I know you mentioned your podcast earlier, but yeah, professional plug. If they wanted to connect with you a little bit more in the advocacy you're doing in the autism community, how would they get in touch with you? How would they connect with you in your
Okay,
work?
so you can sort of go to our website, which is deepdiveau.net.
Mhm.
And you can sort of contact me through there. You can go to my YouTube page, which is youtube.com/@the-deep-dive-au. So you can watch all the episodes through there, and you can also subscribe through Deep Dive AU through your favorite podcast app as well. You can subscribe via our Patreon page. I'm hoping to get some exclusive content in the next couple of months. I haven't sort of worked that out yet, but I'm hoping to get some exclusive content. You can buy a mug and stuff like that through the Deep Dive AU as well, so that you can support my work through that way. And also, I've got an Instagram at the Deep Dive AU, and also a TikTok at the Deep Dive AU as well, so you can connect through that as well.
Lovely. And I'll make sure that I have all the links in the show notes to make it easy for people to connect with you as well. Well, thank you so much, Michael, for being on the show.
Absolutely. Pleasure, Shannon. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Me again. Thank you so much for tuning in and listening to this episode of When Burnout Becomes Reality podcast. I do hope that you have gained some insight, wisdom, or taking away something from this episode that is helpful for you with wherever you're at in your burnout journey, or helping others with. Please also reach out. I'd love to hear from the listeners, the viewers, to find out what you're finding helpful, maybe what you still would like to know. So please don't hesitate to follow, subscribe, comment, review, shoot me an email. I have my details in the show notes. And if you are in need of services around burnout and you are an Australian citizen, I, in my business, Burnout Psychology Support, do offer group and individual services, telehealth, as well as in-person in Brisbane. So again, check out the show notes. I have my contact details, but the best thing to do is jump on my website at www.burnoutspsychologysupport.com. And just a reminder, of course, to reach out for personalized help. This podcast, whilst we strive to deliver information that can be supportive and educational for you, it is not tailored to meet your personal needs. And burnout is very individualized in terms of what gets us into burnout and what helps support us in getting out. So please do seek professional support. And I think that is it for me to share with you. Thank you once again, and take care of you. Bye for now.